Hey, this is Josh for Retooled.net, and in this video I'm going to talk about the new multicam setup in the new version of Premiere. So I have 3 clips here, and they're very professionally shot clips of this beautiful cat here, and basically I just have them shot from 3 different cameras, an SLR, a point and shoot, and an iPhone. So basically I'm just going to select all 3 of them, and the new way to set up a multicam sequence is just to right click and hit create multi-camera source sequence. So I could sync based on in points, out points, or time code if the clips all had matching time code, of course. And there's a new feature here that says audio. And that means exactly what you think it might mean. It's a audio-based synchronization that's sort of like, say, a pluralize would do, that will automatically sync your clips based on the audio waveforms. So that's what I'm going to do here. I obviously didn't start these cameras at the same time, and they obviously don't have matching time code. So of course I could come in and manually find an action in the video and set an endpoint, but I'm just going to use the audio waveform to set up my multicam. And then you can choose whether or not you want to move your source clips to a process clips bin, and you could also choose whether you want to use your audio from camera 1, all cameras, whether you want to switch the audio based on the video, or you could set up a custom preset which will let you use a certain specific type of sequence. I'm just going to go back to camera 1, keep everything on automatic, and I'm just going to come up here to the video clip name. And this is basically what is my multicam sequence going to be called. So the default is video clip name plus multicam, but I could also come in here and use an audio clip name or a custom name, and I'm just going to call this multicam sequence and hit OK. And now I have a new sequence called multicam sequence, of course. So if I drag that into my main edit sequence, if I come and I double click on it, you'll see that I have my multicam set up. And then if I scrub through the source sequence here, you'll see I have my 3 cameras. Now if I go into the multicam, I can do that by clicking on the clip while holding command. I'll just double click and you can see how my sequence is set up. So I could of course come in here and trim it, or I could just do that in the edit. So I'm going to go to the point in the edit where all 3 cameras are on, which is right around here, and I'm going to do the same thing to the out point and go to the point at which all 3 cameras are still on, and I'm going to set an out point there. You'll notice it trimmed my clip in the timeline. So I'm just going to move that over and hit the backslash to frame that clip up. I expand it, you'll see I do get a video preview thumbnail. And you may think that basically I could come in here and start clicking on angles and start switching the angles, and you'll see I come to the sequence. That does work, but it actually stops the playback. So that's not the way I want to do this. So basically I could come in here to the program monitor, and if I click on the little button in the top right corner, there's a new feature that says multi-camera. And I could just turn that on, or I could use the keyboard shortcut of Shift 0, and that is 0 on the main part of the keyboard, not on the number pad. So if I hit Shift 0, I'll be in my multicam sequence. And then if I hit tilde on my screen, I could get a nice full screen representation of this. So basically what I can do is I could come in and I could start seeing how the 3 cameras sync up. And let's go to a nice part where we have a noticeable action. And you can see that the audio sync, there's not much sound going on in the recording of these clips. It was just basically some room noise and the occasional voice in the background. But you can see the audio sync did a really nice job of lining up the video. And then of course I could start choosing my angles. So I could do that in a number of ways. I can click on the angle. Of course I have to make sure I'm doing that in this side in the program monitor. So I could click on the angle I want to change to, or I could use keyboard shortcuts. So if I hit Control K, that's my custom keyboard shortcut to, of course, open the keyboard shortcut dialog. And then if I search for the word camera, you'll see there's shortcuts for cut to camera 1, cut to camera 2, cut to camera 3, etc. And of course I could just hit Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and so on. So now I can just come in, I'm going to come back to the start of my sequence, hit the tilde key to make it full frame, and then I'm just going to hit play. And then on my keyboard, I can say switch to camera 1 with control 1. And I'm going to switch to camera 3 there, camera 2, camera 1, and so on. You get the point. Now if I hit stop and I come back and look at my sequence, you'll notice all those cuts were recorded. And I could just come back and play the sequence. And you'll also notice that the multi-camera monitor will show me which clip is active. Now if I come and look at the actual timeline itself, you'll see that I have a visualization of which camera is selected. So if I look at this clip, it says MC1, and you'll see the corresponding camera 1 is selected here. Same thing here, MC2, and here MC3. Now if I want to change the angle I picked after the fact, so let's say I want to change the starting camera to camera 3, I could right click on it in the timeline, go to the multi-camera menu, and just say camera 3. So now let's say this is my perfect edit here, and I want to go off and I want to send it to an XML or an EDL so I could send it to the colorist or another editor. Basically, I want this to be understandable information with timecode, referencing the original clips, not a nest, which essentially the multi-camera sequence is. So unlike CS6, in the new version of Premiere, I can actually commit my multicam. Now a little trick I like to do before I commit it is come in, select it, hold down Option, and then drag it up so I have a duplicate of my multi-camera sequence. And then of course I could come in and shut off video track 1, or I could just select all the clips and shut them off. And then I could come in here, select the duplicate sequence, and right click on it, go to the multi-camera menu, and choose Flatten. And you'll notice now I have all of the original source clips. Now it's still showing me which multicam they're from because I still have my multi-camera below it. So if I were to come in here and delete my multi-camera clips and hit Shift 0 to leave multi-camera view, you'll notice now I have all my original source clips laid out in my sequence. If I hit Command plus to zoom in, you'll notice that they're all laid out in a row and they're all going back to the original source clip. So of course this is something I could send off to another editor or a colorist or anything like that. Now one thing I will say about the new audio synchronization is it is really nice for something like this, but it's not going to replace a product like Pluralize. So let's say you have a lot of cameras that are starting and stopping, and you have several sources, and cameras are missing chunks and things like that. Really, Pluralize is going to be your full-featured way to do something like this in terms of aligning the clips. And then you could come in here and set up your multi-camera sequence. But it will work for simple scenarios where the camera's on the same time, and even sometimes if there are some cuts in your footage. Just know it's not going to replace Pluralize. Now the other thing about audio-based syncing is that it doesn't have to be used for a multicam sequence. You can actually take separate audio clips, whether it's video and audio, or just audio. Let's say you had SLR audio and audio from an external recorder. You could sync those two sources and tell Premiere to create a new clip that is basically the video from the SLR and the audio from the external recorder, and just merge those clips. And of course you could choose to keep both tracks of audio or just use one of the two. Obviously in that case you'd use the external recorder. So just so you know, you can use this outside of the multicam workflow. All in all, the new multi-camera sequence is a lot better than the old, and especially the ability to flatten it is a much requested feature that I'm really glad that Adobe finally got to.